G'day guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing awesome. I'm going to be doing a film review this evening. Now this is a French horror film, but it's very different because it's an animated horror film. And it's very different from Pixar animation or clay animation. Yeah, this is very much like a drawing come to life. And a collection of the most well-respected people in the animated film business have come together to make a very interesting feature film. This is the 2007 Fears of the Dark. Now, the people who directed this um, are Blutch. I'm not sure if that's a name or a nickname, but Blutch, Charles Burns, Marie Caillou, Pierre de Sciullo, Lorenzo Mattotti, and Richard Maguire. And written by Blutch, Charles Burns, Pierre de Sciullo, Jerry Kramsky, Richard Maguire, Mikhail Pirou, and Romain Slocum. I'm sorry if I've butchered some of those names, but I'm not good with names. But anyway, they've all come together to make, Fears of the Dark. And the title says it all. This film centers around darkness and our fears, common fears like paranoia and all that. There's four stories, and two, I wouldn't say, or they're stories, but they're not the same as the four that are featured in it. So the film starts off with this guy. I think it's the 18th century. He's wearing a funny hat and the leggings and everything. So I think it's from that era. And he's walking these dogs of his, and these dogs are massive. There's about 4 or 5 of them, and they're all on a leash. And they're vicious, and they will growl at anything. They see a bird, and they're growling, barking hysterically, trying to get it. They see a rabbit, they do the same thing. So you can tell that these are very, very scary dogs. And this guy on the leash is a complete psycho. And as soon as he sees a civilian, he'll let one of the dogs off the leash to go and eat them. And so once one of the dogs is gone, he leaves that dog behind to do its business, and we don't see that dog again. And so the further and further he goes, he lets a dog off the leash to go and get his victim, and we slowly go down until the last dog is remaining. And that last dog is a very memorable scene. I was really shocked by it, coming from an animated film. But yeah, that was really interesting. And there's also another kind of story of this narrated kind of piece. There's just weird shapes on the screen, and this woman doing a monologue about her fears. She fears making a fool of herself at the grocery. She fears being mediocre. She fears dying in a car accident. Just these really irrational kind of thoughts. Um, she just keeps on obsessing about these things that are just really unrealistic, and just a lot of mental chatter. And I thought that was really interesting too. And these two stories are pretty much to fill the gap in between the four featured stories. Now, as I said, we start off with the guy with the dogs, and then it goes to the first story. Now, the first story is about a young boy who is very socially awkward. He's grown up by himself. He's obsessed with bugs, insects, and he has his own little. His mother doesn't like her son taking insects back to the house, but yet she bought him a workspace in his room to do experiments on these bugs. So I don't know what she was expecting, but anyway, he has this workspace, and he takes back his specimens, which are insects, and he does experiments on them. So he's really, really keen on his insects. So one day he's wandering around in the woods, and he comes across this really weird insect, and he decides to take it home. And he hides it under the bed until he's finished dinner, because he doesn't want his mum to tell him to throw it away. And he comes back, looks under his bed, and the jar is empty. It's fallen over, and the lid's off, and this bug is gone. He looks over and over, all over for it, but can't find it. But years and years pass, and every night he can hear the bug, the insect. He can hear it, but he can't see it. And so, he's wondering if that's just in his mind, or is the bug, insect really there. And this really got to me in the way that when I was young, I'd see a spider on the wall and think to myself, I hope it doesn't come near me. And I'll leave the room, come back later, and it'd be gone. and then I'd be thinking, where the hell's it gone? Is it under my seat? Is it in my bed? And I just get paranoid about it. And this film really brings back that kind of feeling. So it was really, really well done. So anyway, years go by. He's a grown man now, but he can still hear that bug. I keep saying bug. He can still hear that insect, and it still haunts him. And he ends up finding the woman of his dreams, and that's where, as far as I'll go with it. So this really touched on the fear of paranoia and that kind of thing. And so at the end of this story, we cut away to the guy with the dogs again, and he lets the dog off the leash to go and get his victim. And then we go to the second story. Now this is a very different animation. Each director has their own style. Some are better in quality, but all interesting as each other. So the second one is set in Japan, but it's still spoken in French. A little girl named Samako. She's very troubled, and she's having these nightmares. She wakes up. We start off. She's in a hospital, and this doctor is injecting this huge needle in her arm, and keeps telling her, "Don't wake up until you've relived your dream." And I'm not going to go into detail about that, but she has these horrible, horrible nightmares, and they're really, really twisted. And yeah, so that's as far as I go with that one. But that touched on a very different fear from the first one. And so we go, at the end of that story, we go to the monologue where this woman is talking about just really irrational thoughts. And then we go to the third story, and the third story is set in a town where people go missing and are never seen again. And this guy's friend, they talk a lot, and this guy seems to believe that there's a beast that is taking these people. And that's the third story. And at the end of the third story, it cuts to the guy with the dogs. And yeah, the last dog is something that you have to see. That was a really, really good scene. I really liked that one. And then we cut to the fourth story, and that fourth story is of a man who seeks refuge in an abandoned house in a snowstorm. And he thinks it's empty, but it's not as empty as he first thought, and he starts hearing things, and yeah, it goes on from there. And that's the end of the story, the end of the film. I can't recommend this enough. It's definitely not for everyone. Not everyone is going to enjoy this, but this is one of the best psychological sort of horror films that I've seen. And that's something coming from, an animated film. I wasn't expecting something of this quality. Very, very psychological, no gore. Well, there is a pretty nasty scene in it, but gorehounds won't get any satisfaction out of this. But if you like your psychological stuff, this one is definitely recommended. I was surprised. Very, very good. The animations were excellent, even though it was kind of poor in quality, some of them. They were just so well done that it doesn't take anything out of it, for me at least. As I said, it's a lot of people won't like this at all, but if you're like me and you like your more psychological kind of horror, this one is definitely one to check out because it's very, very interesting, very well done. And it's only 80 minutes long, so 4 stories plus those 2 sort of semi sort of stories. So it's not overly long, and I found that it actually went very quickly. So yeah, I hope they make a second installment of these films because yeah, it is very, very good, and I highly recommend it. Especially if you're a fan of French horror, it's something very different. And yeah, so yeah, very, very good. All right, guys. Hope that was a good review for you all. Yeah, very scary. Well, not overly scary, but very creepy. Touches on a lot of psychological fears. And so yeah, you can't go wrong with this one. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.